We have another question, one from Brooke here. Brooke says, how do you sustain the energy and conversation on anti-racism once people get bored or feel better about what they've done to support the fight against racism?
Yeah, it definitely can take an emotional toll on you because again, it's emotional work, and because recent events like the civil unrest has brought racism and anti-racism to the forefront. It isn't soup du jour, so to speak. So racism has been around 400 plus years in the U.S. And just because it's in the spotlight right now doesn't mean that when it has quote unquote died down a bit that it goes away. It definitely doesn't go away for people who are impacted by it. And so the way that you sustain it is you look for ways to embed D&I in your culture of your organization. And you look for ways to make it business as usual. And this doesn't just relate to racism, but it relates to all aspects of diversity and inclusion. And you have to continue to work at it.
Yeah, it's interesting how that's a great question from Brooke. People's attention spans are pretty short, right? We get bored really fast, or we check the box and we move on. And so if I'm a person who was unaware of racism and I learned about George Floyd and some of the other things that have happened, and then I decide to put my money in a nonprofit that's focused on helping, Blacks or, victims or whatever that is, I then feel like I've done what I'm supposed to do. And so I would challenge people to not let that check in the box of I gave my money or I posted a post on Facebook one time and now I'm done, I can move on, right? I mean, I think that's one of the things to that question that keeps the energy going. And I'd love to know if you had any other suggestions on how do you keep from letting yourself get off the hook, right? Like you gave yourself a pass, you gave your money, and so now I've given myself a pass, right? But if we keep it real, that's not going to matter because the problem is never going to go away, right? You hear people talk about, oh, it's like a marathon, but combating racism and discrimination and all those things, they're really not like a marathon because it never ends. It's a marathon that never ends. So how do you sustain that energy, right? I know you hit a few things on this, but any other things that you would suggest on that?
Yeah, definitely. Financial contributions are great, but to your point, there's so much more that can be done. You can volunteer, with some progressive organizations doing work to make an impactful change. Things like saying, "Oh, I don't see color." Um, when you say that, what that tells me is that you don't see the injustice, you don't see what is happening. You've chosen not to see me and the impact that a lot of these things have on my life. Have the tough conversations with your friends and family and those in your circle, and start to to challenge them, about some of their beliefs, share what you've learned. And I always say silence supports the system. You can't be silent. When you're silent, it reinforces bad behaviors. It really reinforces stereotypes and injustice, and it gives cover for people to exhibit poor behavior. So challenge yourself to do a bit more and continue to educate yourself.
No, super. Well, I know we're close to time here. I'm just going to look to see if there are any questions in the chat. I don't see a question in the chat, but somebody sent me this question in email, and I want to make sure I told them that I would ask the question to you. What about making a mistake, right? People are afraid to take this challenge on and move forward with this conversation because they're worried about making a mistake. What would you tell people to do with regard to that?
So what I try to tell our employees in the environment we try to foster is that we're going to make mistakes, right? You know, I think we've gotten hypersensitive in many ways as a society, that we don't allow people to learn and make mistakes. And that doesn't mean that the mistake isn't sometimes hurtful to people, but I try to give people the benefit of the doubt as much as possible. And I try to educate myself about those things that I'm not aware of. If you find that you make a mistake, apologize, apologize and say, that wasn't my intention, again, I apologize for any harm it has caused. I'm going to do better the next time. And I think if we all can be a little more compassionate, if we can all show a little more empathy and allow people the opportunity to learn and grow, we'll be better off.
Tarsha, I really think that's amazing. It's been great having you here. I wanted to get your kind of your parting thoughts on just things that people might do. If you take it from the, okay, I made a mistake, and it's always hard. Admit you made a mistake. It's all about change and transforming. What are some of the biggest things that a person can do to help them kind of transform themselves to become that person that is more of an anti-racist than a non-racist?
So I go back to education, and having an open mind and really listening to people, listening to their experience, and going from there. Those are the two big things for me.